Alright, so let's do a tier list on all of the Bloons TD 6 heroes. Now, we haven't done one of these in a while, and I think this is going to be the perfect time for us to kind of check in on all the heroes and just kind of try and rank them on how good they are. But at the same time, I want you guys to know that I'm not exactly ranking all of these heroes based on solely how good they are, but also how much I use them, because some heroes might be good, but I just don't necessarily like using those heroes, and that's why I'm going to be ranking them lower or higher depending on that. So let's start with Quincy. For some reason he has like a white background, so I'm gonna place Quincy in B tier. I think B tier is appropriate because I do sort of use Quincy, and I think B tier is just the perfect one for Quincy. Now, Quincy is a hero that doesn't do a lot of things, but whatever he does it well. Like, for example, he's got this early game power, like he can deal with all of the balloons in the early game. He's got some early camo detection. I kind of put him into B tier because I do somewhat use Quincy, but at the same time he also got some really interesting buffs. I think he got like +1 arrow in the late game, and he buffs really nicely with an alchemist in the Jungle Jumps village. So his late game power is not exactly that weak, at least in comparison. So I think B tier is appropriate for Quincy. Now next up, I'm gonna choose Gwen, and I'm gonna put Gwen into B tier as well, but honestly, if this was like maybe one of the previous updates, I would have probably had her in C tier. Now the reason why she's in B tier is because of only one thing, and that is her heated up passive ability. So every few attacks, actually it's every 30 or 40 attacks, I keep forgetting, she releases this wave which buffs nearby towers around her and takes you some recent buffs. Basically what this means is that she can sustain this buff on her own, so it's going to be 100% uptime without any external help. And this is really important because the buff actually starts giving +1 damage. I think it's +1 damage, it's +1 pierce, it's adding fire to the attacks of the monkeys that it affects, so that means that they can pop lead balloons, and it also does +2 damage to lead balloons. It's like a mini alchemist when you think about it. So yeah, I think B tier is just amazing for Gwen. Next up, let's go for Obyn. Obyn is probably the easiest C tier out of all of these guys, and the reason why I put him in C tier is even though he recently got buffed, I don't think that the buffs did anything special to him. So I guess Obyn's strength is just buffing other towers, and he himself got some interesting buffs, like for example the Brambles now last 5 rounds, but the thing is it's not exactly impactful. And also there was this interesting buff where he increases the range of the jungle's bounty druids, so that means that you can fit a lot more farms inside of the range of a druid, and so druid farming is a little bit more potent, but I'm not exactly sure how impactful that is in comparison to other farming methods. So Obyn is basically just the same hero that he always was. He has a decent attack. I mean, the totems are nice, the wall of trees can help you, stop some leaks or whatever it is, but I think this is the easiest C tier out of all of them. Next up, Sauda. Sauda is an S tier hero for me. I think people would generally rank her somewhere between A and S, but she's easily an S tier hero for me, and I actually recommend buying Sauda first if you guys are kind of starting out with BTD6. I think that she's just like this super simple, super easy hero which you can just place down and you don't have to worry about anything. She can deal with lead balloons with her level 3 ability. She buffs very well with an alchemist with the village, and just does extra damage if you keep throwing in some support towers, like for example some DPS, or if you're slowing or if you're stunning the balloons. So she's just like this super simple hero that everyone can understand, and you can just place her down and she does the job really well. And I think that that's why S tier is appropriate for her. And actually, while we're at these higher tiers, I want to put a tower that you might not expect. Actually, you probably would. I'm gonna put Adora into A tier as well. And no, I'm not doing this with their starting letters. Nope, I'm absolutely not doing that. She's actually kind of nice in the early game because she has a lot of peers, but then falls off in the mid game because she doesn't exactly level that fast, so you're gonna kind of need to do some sacrifices. But the reason why I'm putting her in A tier is just because of her amazing late game. She is the best late game hero in Bloons TD 6, and whatever Adora can do, there are only few heroes that can match her power, and two of those heroes are actually Ezili and Geraldo somewhat, but we're gonna get to those guys in a second. And next up, let's go for Pat Fusty, and I would put Pat Fusty in D, as in he's a decent hero. And the strength with Pat lies in the fact that he can stun balloons, but most importantly he can buff towers, and whatever he buffs them really well. So the most common strategies are going to be the Pat tag zone. It's also known as the Pat zone. Once you use the level 3 ability, the tag zone just goes ham, and all of those tags just do like +3 damage. It's insane. And another one is the Pat Maelstrom, the Super Maelstrom actually. So whenever you use the ability, those flying blades from the Super Maelstrom, they do a lot of damage, and those are kind of some niche strategies. But other than that, I'm not exactly a fan of Pat Fusty, but he is a decent hero, and I guess D is abilities were decent. Actually, while we're at D tier, I'm gonna put Captain Churchill in D tier. Now this one is, I was kind of on the fence between D and F tier for this guy, but I think I'm just gonna go for D tier just because he's a really strong hero once you place him. But the problem is that this guy costs like $2,000 and he is not exactly the fastest leveler, but whenever you place him, he does do a lot of damage. And for example, if you have him like in a chimps game or something like that, he is gonna scale and he's gonna destroy a bunch of balloons. And he's like a super simple hero, just like Sauda and just like, I guess, Adora, right? You just place him down, you buff him up, and he's just gonna go to town on those balloons. But he's an expensive hero and you cannot exactly afford him, and you don't even want to buy him on like the majority of the maps. So yeah, I think D tier is appropriate. Next up, let's go for one of these starring heroes, and that's gonna be Striker Jones. Now I'm gonna put Striker Jones in B tier, but this is just because, similar to Gwen, this is just because of some recent buffs. So now his level, I think it was the level 5 on Striker Jones, now gives like an extra 25% pierce, which affects all towers, and I think that's kind of a nice and a niche buff, which is not gonna affect too many towers, but it's nice. And also the bombs actually got nerfed, so the bombs cannot pop black balloons and zeros by themselves now with the bottom crosspat, so that makes Striker Jones a lot more valuable. And also his abilities, I don't think the level 10 ability Striker Jones is that useful, but I think the level 3 is actually really nice because it's one of the shortest cooldown abilities in BTE 6. It's only 11 seconds when he hits the higher levels, and you can just keep spamming this thing and you can just keep a bunch of balloons. He's got a lot of pierce and you can just keep these huge bunches of balloons in place for a very, very long time, and I think that that's why B tier is the correct one for Striker Jones for now. Next up, let's get Ben. I'm gonna have the easiest time just placing Ben in S tier. He's probably not an S tier hero like in general, but he's an S tier hero for me personally because I play a lot of boss events, and even though he got nerfed in the early game recently but got buffed in the late game, I still, you know, love Ben. Ben just makes a lot of money. If you guys haven't unlocked Ben, you should probably do that as soon as possible because he is just the boss hero. You just place him down, he makes a lot of money, he makes your life a lot easier, and just because of these boss events, right, this is the reason why I'm just having an S tier, because he just makes a lot of money and makes your life easier. Now we've filled all of these columns with at least something except the F one, and I'm gonna put a very controversial hero in F tier because I don't think the community rates this hero as an F tier, but I kind of do personally, and that's gonna be Admiral Brickell. Now Admiral Brickell is not an F tier hero. In fact, I think she should be ranking pretty much high up there, but the reason why I'm putting her in F tier is just because I personally do not use her. I don't like her as a hero. She's not my type of hero. She requires water, which just kind of limits, you know, a huge percentage of the maps, and I don't want to be limited to just placing water towers because once you get Admiral Brickell, her strength is buffing water-based towers and just dealing with these Moab class balloons through her mega mines. And whenever I have a choice of not picking Admiral Brickell, I'm just not gonna do it. I'm gonna pick another hero to do the same job that she does. Now the things that she does, she's really good at. Like for example, her level 3 naval tactics ability is amazing. You use that thing and your water towers are gonna go insane while that thing is active. It's like, I don't remember the number, it might have been like plus 50% attack speed or something like that. It's super ridiculous, and that's why it lasts for a very short amount of time, by the way. And also a huge portion of her strength is just the Mega Mine level 10 and level 20 ability, which by the way, you can keep stacking. Those things last for a very long time, and you can just keep stacking those guys on top of each other, and they can do so much damage to Moab class blues. It's insane. And again, she's a strong hero, but she's just not my cup of tea, and this might be a little bit controversial, but she's gonna be F tier for me. Alright, so only 5 heroes left, so let's go with Etienne. I'm gonna place Etienne in C tier. Now the reason why I'm placing Etienne in C tier is because I don't exactly use Etienne that much, but I think that he's a really good overall hero. Now Etienne has a really weak mid game, and you kind of want to wait a little while before he gets his drones up and he gets his level 8 ability up and starts giving camo to everyone and stuff like that. And in some situations he might be a little bit ability dependent, so you might want to be timing these abilities. This is not a hero which you can just let go. You can just place on the track and he's gonna do damage by himself. Now he is the type of hero that just does a lot of damage, but the damage component comes a little bit later in the game, and honestly I'm just not using Etienne as much, and that's the reason why I'm just gonna place him in C tier. But I do think that Etienne is kind of a decent hero, but it's not anyone's first choice, and it's not mine either. Now you guys remember how I said that Adora can only be matched by a handful of heroes in her ultra late game abilities, and one of those heroes is Ezili. Now I'm going to place Ezili in B tier. She should probably be a little bit higher than this, maybe A, but I'm gonna place her in B tier just because I don't use Ezili as much. The majority of Ezili's power just lies with her Moab Hex ability, especially the level 20 Moab Hex, which which can now affect bad Bloons. And even if it's just like the level 10 ability, the good thing about that one is that whenever the mob hex pops a Bloon, that Bloon is not going to spawn any small Bloons out of it, and it's going to transfer onto the next one if there's some duration left. The next hero is Sai, and I'm going to put Sai right next to Ezili in B tier, and I think whoever you ask, people are generally going to rank Sai somewhere between A and C tier. I'm just going to put them in B tier just because I feel like this is appropriate. And the reason why Sai is such a good hero is because they can eliminate huge mob class Bloons just by looking at them. Yeah. So the way that Sai works, you guys probably know this already, but they just kind of stun lock a Bloon and then slowly start doing damage to it, and eventually the Bloon disappears. The Bloon doesn't spawn anything, and it is just amazing how strong this hero is. I think it's starting from level 14 is the first time when they can hold mobs, and that's really important, especially in the ultra late game for two reasons. Number one, those mob class Bloons are ramped up with their HP, so you're just eliminating them completely, they're not spawning any children. But number two is because whenever Sai with their attack is able to hold these Bloons, then the level 10 ability can also hold these Bloons. And so, for example, if you have around, like, let's say 98, you can just use the level 10 ability and that entire round is gonna get eliminated. And that is just plain ridiculous because that's the round that has the most RBE in BT6 and chips mode at least, and you can just wipe it with the click of a button, which no other hero can do. Lastly, we only have Corvus and Geraldo left, so let me place Corvus in A tier. The reason why Corvus is in A tier, honestly, Corvus is probably like an S tier hero, but the problem with Corvus is that number one, I don't use Corvus as often. In fact, I barely use Corvus, and number two is that Corvus requires a lot of micro, and I think that is the problem the players namely have with this hero. But if you play Corvus correctly, if you can combo these spells and you know what he does, Corvus is probably one of the strongest heroes in Bloons TD 6. So he does require a lot of paying attention to him and the spells and comboing those spells and how everything works with your other towers. But if you can execute this, my god, Corvus is just such a good hero, but he's still not there for me, so I'm just gonna place him in A tier. And lastly, Geraldo. If you guys have watched my videos, you know that this is the easiest S tier that I'm probably ever gonna give to anyone. Actually, Sauda was an easy one as well, but yeah, Geraldo is he's just my bread and butter. I love Geraldo because Geraldo has this shop, and inside the shop he sells items that can just deal with everything. I'm talking literally everything. Geraldo has a solution to everything the game can throw at you, and he even buffs your paragons eventually. So even though Geraldo himself loses in power, you can actually make your paragon stronger thanks to Geraldo. So he's like this complete hero for me that if you can just play around him and if you know what his items are and you know what he does, he's just gonna be the perfect solution for every situation that you're in. So yeah, that is my BT6 hero tier list. I'm not sure if you guys agree with this, so you guys can let me know down in the comments. I think this is a pretty decent tier list, so let me know what you guys think. And yeah, that's gonna be it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm gonna see you in the next one.